What's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? Dave Conan here.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it. I didn't inhale.
Well, that's why you didn't like it. This is DC420. Richard Green's in the house, and we're going to talk about some news.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The countdown clock has started. Breaking news.
Well, it's 420 somewhere, so tonight I'm obsessed with a new high. A poll released today on 420 from CBS News shows that support for legalized marijuana continues to grow. 61% of all Americans support legalizing pot. That's up 5 points just from last year. Despite the Trump administration's reported plans to harsh this buzz, 71% say the government should not try and take action to stop the sale and use of marijuana in states that have already legalized it. But this poll isn't the only thing lighting up the web on this holiday. In fact, the normalizing of marijuana is becoming so common. Not one, but two stories about weed today invoked the queen of homemaking herself, Martha Stewart. Natch. Quite the joint effort. The Daily Beast has the rise of the stoner mommies. Quote, they blaze up after school drop-offs and create YouTube tutorials to rival Martha Stewart. Meet the weed-loving moms blowing up the internet. Then the New Yorker has this. The Martha Stewart of marijuana
I think we're
edibles.
at 6 puns.
Let's be blunt, folks. The mainstream acceptance
let's
of
be
marijuana
blunt.
has
There's another
happened,
one.
and it's
There's
happening
another
rapidly.
one.
And it's growing every year. But hey, if it wasn't 420 today, weed would be obsessed with something else. I'll be right back.
And not just Trump.
In Central American countries
likes to flip-flop.
Is the idea of, for instance, marijuana legalization, does that help your problem or hurt your problem?
Yeah, marijuana is not a factor in the drug world.
This really is a cocaine and in some cases the opioid sort of copycats.
Three things. Methamphetamine, almost all produced in Mexico.
Goodness.
Heroin, virtually all produced in Mexico. And cocaine that comes up from further south. And let me be clear about marijuana.
Yes, let's be clear about marijuana.
It is a potentially dangerous gateway drug that frequently leads to the use of harder drugs.
Wrong.
Additionally, science tells us it is not only psychologically addictive, but can have profound negative impacts on the still developing minds of teens and people up into their mid-20s.
Teen use
Beyond
is
that,
down.
however, its use
Down,
and possession
down.
is against federal law, and until the law is changed by the United States Congress, we in DHS, along with the rest of the federal government, are sworn to uphold all the laws that are on the books.
What's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? That was indeed our new Homeland Security chief, the general, brigadier general or something. I don't know what he is. But he's a military guy. They're all military guys running the show. And Donald Tiny Hands has turned over the keys. That was indeed our Homeland Security czar, chief, whatever they're calling him. And he had a nice flip-flop 2 days. He went from, nope, marijuana's no big deal, to, oh yeah, we're gonna take you at the, TSA's gonna take you at the airport and round you up at the border, which they are already doing. So that's at the top of the news right now. Welcome, everybody. Dave Conan here. This is DC420, a weekly look at weed from the capital of cannabis in America, or soon to be California. And the West Coast is indeed burning. And starting January 1st, another countdown coming up, we will have legal recreational marijuana, which is what it's all about, people. This is the conspiracy. Is to turn it all recreational, because of course we want it all decriminalized. Legalize it. Thanks for joining me. Subscribe to the channel. This is OurResistance.tv, and I'm going to try to do this show every week and stay up on some cannabis news. And joining me this afternoon, I want to bring him in right away because he's got another show he's got to get ready for. Of course, Project Sanity, or is it The Discourse? I'm not sure what it's called right now. I think that's another new show. I think so.
Yeah.
So Richard Green,
Yeah,
Richard Green in
so
the
of course,
house. Welcome.
tonight we're actually filling in for Benjamin Dixon on the Benjamin Dixon channel. So we'll be doing that over there. And so tonight is kind of a space between that. But we're working. We're now going to do. I think Project Sanity may turn into more of a local production, or at least focused on more local issues, more interviews with local candidates, things like that. Whereas the discourse is going to be a more higher level meta discussion show without pumping it up too much.
Well, if you're gonna have a meta discussion, you need a meta host like Dr. Brandon Sutton.
Absolutely, we are so lucky to have him. He is amazing.
The meta muscle man of mind. He is great. He is an amazing host, and he's doing really well. He's getting a big following. Of course, I follow him on Twitter at Pretty Bad Lefty. So that's great. So you're a little diversion, focusing more on local races and politics, and then a little more heady stuff over there at the Discourse. So that's great news. Well, welcome to DC420 episode 1. This is my premiere show of something I've been wanting to do, and we've talked about doing this for a long time. So I thank you for joining me on this premiere episode. And I want to get into looking at some of the news items that I have found today. And of course, at the top there, we had the Homeland Security Kelly. Marijuana is a dangerous gateway drug. Right after he said that marijuana is no big deal. It's just the top 3. And but they're back on the drug war. They're stopping people at the border, of course. That's going to be part of it. Part of the the ICE agents are going to use that as a reason once again. And of course, recently, just now within the last, I think, 24 hours, Richard, I think, right? The drug czar has been named. And we're looking at a relic of the 80s drug war.
Of all the positions that we needed filled, drug czar was definitely top of the list.
We need the war. I think we need the war on the working class or something. I don't know. The wars never turn out very well, though, so I don't know if a war on anything is really going to work at this point. I'm sort of against wars in general, but
when we know how it started, as the Nixon official told us not very long ago, that essentially it was a way to marginalize the hippies and the black people. Essentially, is what they said, and they knew what they were doing.
And the Latinos, the Hearst, the property down in Mexico. It was political games, racist. It had to do with land and resources again.
Oh yeah, I mean, going all the way back, it has a long history. Just most recently, the nominal name on or war on drugs out of the Nixon campaign, like was specifically because they couldn't criminalize being on the left, but they could criminalize smoking a pot and being on the left. So that's how they started to crack down on folks. And it's not terribly outrageous to suggest that perhaps that's what we might be seeing in the near future with the Jeff Sessions and even Joe Manchin.
Sessions is a relic of the 50s. So, we've got a relic of the 50s, a relic of the 80s. Mm-hmm. And, this drug czar actually has a very interesting way that he's going to deal with non-violent drug offenders. And he's going to put him in something he would call a hospital/prison, quote. So not exactly sure what that entails, but he of course has voted about just about every possible legislation to decriminalize, to legalize, to take anything, even non-psychoactive CBDs. He's just voted against everything. So we've got that up against us, but there's good news.
Coming from a confident ignorance, that's what is so frustrating. In
it's like the Homeland Kelly said. It's gateway drug. We know research decades old has proved that's not true. They're using all the old excuses, and they're out of the last 2 cents. It's way.
I mean, maybe I guess that worked before the internet, and you could.
Exactly.
Like and they should check right now, Google right now, whether you believe cannabis is a gateway drug, and you'll find a lot of studies and a lot of things.
It's out there. The Google can be good, can be your friend. Normal, of course, is a good place to go. They keep good track of what's going on. Today is, of course, 420. They have a end prohibition thunderclap going out today. I don't know if you got involved in that, but of course they keep track of the legislative items that are going on around the country, and there's a really mostly good news around that. Of course, they're talking about how Tennessee's got some problems because they basically just passed a law that will stop cities from within the state from decriminalizing marijuana. So they're trying to stop it at the top of the state level. But, there's other action going on. West Virginia is going to become the 29th state to legalize medical marijuana. That's brand new. It's going to be a pretty regulated law. You can't smoke it in West Virginia. You can take it by pills. You can take it by oil, I think, but it's going to be pretty regulated. And then, of course, Iowa. I don't think I have a slide up here for this, but of course, Iowa, the state legislature, it passed it overwhelmingly, the Senate, to get medical marijuana, and it's going to go to the governor apparently, and he said he's going to pass it. So we're getting some good stuff happening in legislative land. Nebraska now is looking at possibly getting more medical marijuana on there. Oh, wait a minute, I want to bring this video up here, and I pre-shot it. So Nebraska here is going to, and what Chuck Todd talked about, the normalization of marijuana, and it's showing up more and more in news cycles and mainstream.
The Chuck Todd clip, man. I can't believe. I'm glad I'm not the only one who saw that.
Which one? Which clip?
The first one of all the puns. I could. That was too much.
Yeah. That's the mainstream media. I don't think there was like 6, 7, 8 puns. I don't know what the pun count. But let me be blunt. Here's the video from.
He's so pleased with himself too. Go ahead.
I know. Oh yeah, everything just got better too. It's just like, there's another one. I got another one. Just 3. Ever heard of the rule of 3? Just do 3. Let it go. All right, here's this newscast. These guys are a little more. This is more milk toast. It's more milk toast.
The day before lawmakers begin debate on legalizing medical cannabis, supporters take their message in front of the state capitol.
Nebraska is stuck in this fear-mongering.
Sherry Lawler has been fighting to legalize a drug for 3 years. Her daughter Brooke suffers from 2 to 3 severe epileptic seizures a day.
My daughter takes 500 pills a month, and this is going to eventually kill her. It will shut down her organs.
Freshman Senator Anna Wishart is sponsoring the bill this year. LB 622 would allow medical marijuana in pills or capsule form only, no smoking or edibles. Patients would have to be registered and could only get up to a 30-day prescription.
It's a very regulated system that we're putting in place.
The speaker has scheduled 2 hours of debate. Wishart says in that time she hopes to educate new senators and stave off efforts to kill the measure.
The goal is that the bill isn't voted down tomorrow, that we keep it alive.
Every state that has legalized medical marijuana has now either legalized or has legislation pending to legalize recreational marijuana.
Opponents say they are sympathetic to parents with sick children, but they want to see more medical proof it works.
And that is a hard decision, but it's a public policy matter as far as I'm concerned.
Lawler says 29 states have legalized medical cannabis. She says she knows of some parents who are taking desperate measures.
I just hope that they don't get caught and make us criminals, because that's what they're doing. If you have a sick child and you're desperately looking for help, you're pushing us into becoming a criminal.
In Lincoln, Andrew Ozaki, KETV, Newswatch 7.
Well, voters may get a chance to decide the issue. A petition initiative has begun to put legalizing medical and recreational marijuana on the ballot in 2018.
So that's that you didn't hear that, Richard. The petition to get it on the ballot for both legal, for medical and legal, in 2018. So a conservative legislator there, he's right. It isn't a nose under the tent. It's certainly although the medical benefits was ridiculous. The comment that we need more research. We have the research out there. It's just not being done in the United States. Where it's being done? Israel. It's being done in Israel. And I want to talk about that a little bit. And we do have the countdown clock going. It is 5 minutes. We've got 5 minutes on the clock until 4:20. So we are counting down for that. But just another happy 420, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This is DC420. I'm Dave Conan. If Anderson Cooper can do it, so can I. And this is Richard Green joining me, a longtime friend and compatriot here on YouTube broadcasting up there in Seattle, Washington, where there's a lot going on, and a lot going on everywhere. And the cannabis industry, of course, is really taking off. The entrepreneurs are very happy. This is in Entrepreneur Magazine, interviewing some of the current bigwigs in the biz. And they really they have a sunny outlook, a rosy outlook, a flowery outlook, even though we have this draconian group in the administration. Colorado has its first drive-through marijuana shop. They figured out how to do that, where you actually pull into it like it's a car wash, and then they sell it to you through a window. It's brilliant.
Is it like, I can't tell in that picture because of the size of where I'm looking, but is it like a drive under roof so that like the hand-to-hand exchange isn't out in public?
That's right. They drive under, they lock the car in, and then they open the window, and then they hand it through the window, and then they close everything up, and then you drive off. If there's a kid in the car, they don't let them in. There's a guy.
That's it.
So
I mean, they've been doing drive-through booze for a while. Which
I know,
I think,
in Louisiana,
it would be more controversial to me, in my opinion.
Exactly. So that's good news, Colorado. And but here's the story that I found really interesting with regards to Israel. And it says how Israel plans to get into the $50 billion medical marijuana market. And it's a great article, actually, and it talks about how they are, first of all, Israel is like one of the number one researcher in the world. So I'm critical of Israeli government a lot, but they are the number one researcher in the world. They currently have 120, trials going on with cannabis. They use them regularly in their nursing homes. And now they're getting into the market because America can't export, of course, because it's on Schedule 1, but they're going to open up companies in the United States with special permission. 2 companies are going to be opening up with special permission to export to Europe. So, and the United States actually invests in more in one of the top investors in their research in Israel. So not only are they doing the most work, more people in Israel smoke weed. They have a higher percentage of adults that smoke cannabis, although it's not legal recreationally. It's only legal medicinally. It's used profoundly through their nursing homes, which amazingly is happening here in the United States. In New York, there's a nursing home that uses a Jewish nursing home that uses it. And there's in your state, Richard, there's 122. No, I'm sorry. That was the last one. That was the last story. Let me find the number here.
Well, you find the number. I just find it interesting that now it's unfortunate for Sessions is going to have to add to the KKK, or with the KKK, is going to have to add seniors and Israel to people he doesn't like now because they smoke pot. So
yeah, I can't get behind them anymore. They smoke the reefer. So here it is. In Washington, Richard, you have dozens of assisted living facilities. It says here in the state of Washington, at least a dozen assisted living facilities have formal medical marijuana policies in response to demands from their residents, said Robin Dale, executive director of Washington Healthcare Association. The association industry has posted a sample medical marijuana policy on its website. So they have a policy. You can't, basically they can't provide it. They can't administer it. They can't touch it. It's got to be in a locked box in the person's room, but they can have it.
Dozens with official policies, because I was going to say, I feel like it's probably a much higher number of how many people have unofficial policies.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Good, 1 minute. So, but yeah, they just got good family members who are kind enough to stop by and bring them their aids.
Speaking of which, I've got a nice bowl of lemon OG, friend of her first plant. It's very nice. I got my nice J. I'm a J man. I don't know about you. They're rich. I've got, there's the alarm, folks. There it is. 420. Happy 420, everybody.
Happy 420, Alan.
Hang on, Rich. I'll give you a break here. I'll give you a break. Wait. I'm going to me. There you go.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Now we can dive deep into these news stories.
Oh man, yeah. I think I was watching MSNBC earlier, and they mentioned that today is a holiday for some folks, and I just thought it was interesting to hear that acknowledged on the news. I want to say it was the Craig guy.
Oh, Craig Milburn. Yes, Craig Milburn.
Yeah.
For a holiday for some folks. Well, that would mean every day is a holiday for me.
But I mean, I think it's a good time. It doesn't get enough attention, so I'm glad it does get some.
It doesn't, and of course, you can imbibe in any number of ways. I am, of course, doing the traditional joint, not your mega joint. This would be more of a subtle. They call it the little joint, the little. I don't know what the parlance is, but and we have, of course, this is the vape pen, which this one has Rich. This has some of my Dr. Fish's. The clear, he calls it. This is 97% THC. That's a great painkiller. And then, of course, there's the drops here, which are a personal blend for our family. And in my joint today, I have a little of the Girl Scout cookie.
That is a popular strain.
It is indeed. I enjoy Girl Scout cookie. I have to say this lemon OG though that. That's yes. I have the lemon OG somewhere. I think that's in the bowl. Sorry, but this was her first. She just got into growing and working with our grower, who is a up and up cannabis guy. You know, he treats a lot of animals. Dozens of animals. I mean, really successfully with CBD. And his dog. He has a dog actually that has a heart murmur and is having lots of success with that. So. You know, the science is out there. This is a legitimate medicinal plant, and you know, the fact that it also brings such joy to so many people on so many levels. The veterans, for instance, you know, there's a very big, large, and I think, Rich, maybe this is something that we can, you know, this is a way that we can get in the door, is with the veterans, because there are a lot of veterans that are really sick and tired of being on the drugs that the VA is throwing them on. You know, they're killing.
That's one of the things. One of the secrets that they haven't really got into about the opioid epidemic is a large portion of that is a result of returning veterans, and rather than getting some of the additional treatment that they need, they're being prescribed opiates and getting addicted, and they're cut off for one reason or another, or can't get enough. They're turning to other aspects like heroin, and so I think one of the things, when I was originally, we've had a few runs at trying to get something passed in Washington for legalization, and one of the things I was collecting signatures for many years back, I had several veterans that would come up and talk to me about how that they were so supportive of it, despite, and I'm not just talking about you know, Iraq War veterans or veterans from recent wars, but additionally, many of the veterans I was talking to were from the Vietnam era. So we're talking about 70s, 80-year-old veterans that couldn't think when they were on the opiates that they were being prescribed for their joint pain and for the various other things that they had. And they found that various cannabis, either tinctures or heavily CBD oils and various other avenues, after consulting with medical professionals that are savvy to this stuff, they found that they were able to be far more lucid and be much more active in their day-to-day life than they were with the combination of drugs that they were on elsewise. And so that's for some of the people that put everything on the line, sacrificed everything. I think it's important that we provide them at least the bare minimum of care that their request that can be expected. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, no, I agree, and I just wanted to point out that NORML has there's an article up on the NORML site that says study medical cannabis patients report decreased use of opioids, anti-anxiety medicines. So it is there's case after case. Anybody that tries, you know, finds that it is successful in doing what they really want to do, which is get distracted from the shit they went through and alleviate the pain that it goes associated with their wounds, whether they be physical or mental wounds. And
yeah, I think the anti-anxiety part is interesting, just because I know that it's one of those things where, like other drugs that we use to treat things, it can work one way or the other for some folks, and that, like, you know, but we're learning more about the different types of cannabis and the different types of THC to be able to target and avoid the types of anxieties and stuff that can be triggered with other types. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, no, that's what we're really, I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about more and more of these companies.
Or
Israelis, yeah, that are specifically, you know, they talk about how they want to they're hiring doctors, they're hiring people to come over there and do research, and they want to share their research with everybody that they do it with, you know. So you got to give governments and people props for doing what they see is actually going to help people and are doing the right thing, right? So, kudos, about time. Yeah, kudos to what they're actually doing in Israel, and it's getting more. I mean, obviously they're seeing the benefit in the market as well. As with, I think, that's the other door we get through is with the market.
I think that's really what one of the things. I don't know if you had that scheduled in. I think it's really important that we touch on that, as I think the conversation seems to have shifted, or we seem to have won when it comes to cannabis acceptance. 61% in that recent poll, and I think it's been climbing. He compared it in 1927, and it was in the under 30%. So it's been on an upward rise consistently over the last few decades. So that seems, barring any crazy accident, to be in the right direction. But what I think is important is the crossover between progressive politics and the cannabis industry, and the corporatization of the cannabis industry concerns me, because as it stands, I find that cannabis, as a reasonably long-term cannabis person in the cannabis market, the prices haven't gone up, and they've been reasonably consistent. It's one of the few products over the last decades yet or longer prices have actually gone down. It's a durable, or it's a good, a commodity, the consumable, that's actually gone down in price over time, which is unique among consumables. There's not a whole lot of those that are like that, just due to inflation and such. So I don't think we need the economies of scale to reduce the cost, or the actual cost of this cannabis very much. I would like to see it stay small business. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that, and like how we can avoid the corporatization of cannabis?
Well, that was the big issue, really. The number one issue for me with the legalization here in California was that ultimately that bill was a corporate coup. It was sponsored and written by a couple of big cannabis guys, Weed Maps, I think the Weed Maps guy, and then some other guy that was just like in the small grower community, in the independent grower community. They're like, oh, that guy, bad. Now, is it a good thing we're going to have recreational pot because California is going to, where California leads the way. So yes, okay, that's great. There is a provision in the law that gives the smaller growers a period of time to get their operations to where it's going to be required for the law. There's probably going to be delay in the law. So this is something that Obama actually talked about when I was doing research, for the show. Obama's interview about marijuana, the more in-depth one, his last concern, actually, I think it was more green baiting, as it were to say, oh, you better watch out because there are corporate interests that are going to be interested. And it's like, yeah, I know they're your donors, so I know you know of what you speak. So yes, I believe that it's a big problem. But it's like gentrification. It's like it brings money in. It makes the neighborhood safe, but it's terrible. So
right now, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Cannabis is as it stands,
growing, and
it's an international business. I mean, cannabis goes across the globe and back around again.
That's right.
So, do we want a multinational conglomerate cannabis industry, or do we want it to be dispersed among a bunch of where it's one person isn't producing any more than 100 pounds or 1,000 pounds or whatever, wherever that limit is.
Well, that's their game too. You see, that's their game with these laws, like Prop 64, is they're going to limit the personal growth for people. The law actually scales it back for medical cannabis and the amount of plants they can grow, because it basically bundles it under the same category and it drops it. So that means it's going to be in the hands of these large industrial grows, or the smaller grows that can reach the requirements. Is it stoppable? Is the Democratic Party redeemable? I don't think so.
I mean, California is a juggernaut, which is unfortunate. That I wish you guys could have held off a little bit. You guys already had pretty good access. I think you guys could have had.
Yeah, no, we basically had legal weed here. It was a ticket for anything under an ounce. So, We had basically, even Schwarzenegger said that, I think, we've decriminalized it already. I don't know what they're trying to pass this bill for. But yeah, it was
for corporate control, which is
yeah,
what it sounds like.
I mean,
And
the billboards are up, the weed map billboards are up, all over now. So they're counting down. It's probably going to be delayed. Just because they got to work it out. They got to work out how they're going to come up with the rules and regulations. Well, the good news is there's research being done in San Diego. So, there are and these nursing homes in New York and in Washington. Certain, I can tell you, our certain stance, and I am writing the script about it, because we use medical cannabis in our lives, of course, a number of levels. But my mother-in-law suffers from Alzheimer's disease, and it is by far one of the only things, probably the only thing that actually gives her any relief or has any effect that, not for stopping the disease, because although the CBDs, there needs to be so much more research done in this area. And I'm hoping some of the trials that are going on in Israel, I'm going to look into them, are going to focus on the neurodegenerative diseases, because there is already good evidence that neurodegenerative diseases are what CBDs are like. They are, work great for. So with Parkinson's, with epilepsy, with all of these diseases that are just looks like miracles when it's just some CBDs hooking up with receptors, folks. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Can we stop it?
I mean, the way
I think it's going to.
It's going happening.
Go ahead.
Maybe it's Washington. Maybe it's Washington, focusing around worker-owned cannabis collectives. Like that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see. It's a new industry. There isn't already a mega conglomerate dominant. There
Right.
isn't already a Comcast out there that you have to compete against. Excuse me. So I would love to see a worker-owned or a socialist-based or some sort of concept based around that take off in one of the states. And I mean, Washington has some promise. Maybe Oregon. I know Oregon actually has a lot more, has a personal consumption, and so that everybody is able to grow for personal. So transitioning from that to something like a worker-owned collective type process would be, I think, feasible. So I would love to see that as the counter force to corporate cannabis, because corporate cannabis scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. Corporate cannabis scares me too. I don't want them putting shit in it. I don't want profits being just absorbed into
the
it.
price will go up.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it will. Yeah.
Corporations get prices will go up, but it won't be for workers to get higher pay. Like they won't get paid any better for the people that are distributing it or the people that are retailing it or any of those people. All their pay their pay is going to get cut for corporate profit margins, and that's going to be that's it. You're going to devastate some of what's keeping a lot of people that are in poverty just at floating at that level and in some level of comfort by taking away that industry from them. Primary in a lot of communities of color, but not just communities of color, plenty of communities across the board. So, but I saw that you were queuing up a video, so I'll go ahead and let you intro that.
Well, I'm going to take a little break, get some water, because I'm a little dry mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But
not a bad idea.
But we are hopefully going to be joined in just a little bit by a couple of guys who along with Eric Miller, our good friend Eric Miller up there, the Tacoma City Council member, planning a rally on Saturday in response to Jeff Sessions and this draconian drug czar, I'm sure will be in, as well as support for a couple of bills that are happening up there in Washington. And hopefully we're going to get a chance to talk to Aaron and Jed about the rally that's coming up on Saturday. But here's a little video that they put together about what they're doing on Saturday. We're going to get some water and we'll be right back. So, hashtag FU422, public smoke session. Hashtag smoke sessions. Clever, clever. Fired up on 422 cannabis rally for HB 1060 and SB 5290. Now, these are, Richard, do you know anything about these? I didn't want to throw that. I didn't mean to just throw that at you. I just saw you sitting there. But I think these are both local bills in the state. HB 160 and SB 590, known as Ducky's Bill, I believe. I have a video, actually. That's this one right here, by this same group that produced that little promo for the rally on Saturday. These are two activists. And, of course, Eric, Jedidiah Haney, and Aaron Kane is the filmmaker, who this is called Washington CBD Kid. And this is what these bills are all about. So we're going to find out about it, and we'll let you know at the end of the video. They let you know how you can support these laws up there in Washington that are coming up, I believe, for soon. Coming up soon. Here it is, Washington CBD Kid.
Okay.
All right, go ahead and just tell us a little bit about you guys' story.
Yeah.
What that?
So can I talk for a second, Ruth? Or you go watch your thing real quick, okay? Love, you think you can have a kiss? No? No? Ah, super shy.
This sweet little girl is at the center of swirling discussion on the Hill in Washington state. She's afflicted with a generalized epileptic disorder that manifests as devastating grand mal seizures. Here's how River, aka Ducky's father John, was inspired to make big changes for the small people that are our future.
Hi, I'm John Barclay. I'm River Barclay's dad. I lovingly refer to her as River Ducky, or Ducky. She was born on January 27th. Seemingly perfect little girl. 10 toes, 10 fingers. Beautiful smile even then. Then at 2014, River had her first seizure. I was there with her. She went to the hospital emergency room. They took a CAT scan. 6 weeks later, she had another seizure. 3 or 4 weeks after that, she had a seizure in the morning, and then a seizure again a couple hours later. And at that point, I said, let's get in the car and go to Marybridge. And then she seized in the emergency room, and so they admitted us.
That was the beginning of a brutal journey into the world of high-octane pharmaceuticals. The biggest problem is that along with these pills come powerful side effects on her tiny body and developing brain. And on top of that, they weren't even working.
The first listed side effect of seizure medications is seizures, and that was the predominant side effect in River. She started having really violent seizures, more frequent seizures.
Hello.
Horrific seizures. After the third medication failed her and caused her to stop eating for 4 days, we asked the doctor if there was anything we could do. And he said CBD it also comes in a natural form. And we researched that, and we decided that medical marijuana, the high CBD strains, is what we would look towards. We got our first tincture of a very high CBD, low THC, and the first day we gave it to her, she went from having between 60 and 80 myoclonic seizures, drop seizures a day, to spending a full day in school and having less than 5 myoclonic seizures.
After such incredible results, River was now able to approach public school again, a luxury that most kids take for granted. but there's still one obstacle standing in her way.
Then the first day of school, I went to take River and approached the nurse, and the nurse, I said, "So have you heard anything from the superintendent?" And she goes, "Yes, you need a prescription." Okay, that's not going to happen. It's federally illegal. No doctor is going to prescribe it. Would you take her medical card? She's state authorized and in the registry for use of medical marijuana. She didn't let me get back with that, and that was denied. You need a prescription. So then it didn't become just became a quest to make it so that Ducky could go to school.
John knew that if he wanted to succeed in his quest, he needed to take action. He reached out to local legislators Brian Blake and Jim Walsh, and with their support, the love he has for his daughter may have a hand in shaping state legislature through Ducky's Bill.
So Ducky's Bill was just something that grew out of my relationship with John. I watched his struggles with his daughter and the seizures she was having and the anguish, and then saw him, messaging about how she was responding to this different therapy using CBD oil, I believe it's called, and it's kind of warms your heart to see a child healing. Her seizures became infrequent enough that he could get her back into public school, and it was later that he ran into the barrier. The school couldn't allow her to have a cookie laden with the CBD oil on school grounds, and it was a barrier to her having a full school day.
All right, what's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? Back here on DC420. I'm Dave Conan, fixing my earpiece, and we were just watching an amazing video called Washington CBD Kid. By I think one of our guests that have just arrived, and I believe that do we have Jed and Aaron with us, Richard? Yep. Great. I think we can hear you guys great. You can hear us. Welcome to DC420. Thanks for coming on my first show. Appreciate you coming on to talk about your rally on Saturday. And I want to know more about these bills that are going up there in Washington. Just briefly to introduce who our guests are, we have Jedidiah Haney and Aaron Kane, and they are organizers of FU on 422. Jed is a cannabis activist and advocate. Since 2014, he has worked to repeal local bans on legal cannabis across Washington state, and now works in cannabis policy. And Aaron Kane, of course, is a filmmaker, creative director, artist, chef, I understand, from one of your episodes of Schedule None, which I saw a couple episodes. Those were great. And,
oh, man. Thank you.
I want to say, I'm like, where are more episodes? We need more episodes of that show. And we actually, maybe we can talk about that a little bit later, but about the insurgence in the media of even mainstream media of these weed shows, as well as in the underground, as it were. But welcome, guys, to the show. Welcome, DC420. Richard Green is here of Project Sanity. And tell us a little bit about what you and Eric are doing on Saturday, and why you're fired up about Jeff Sessions.
Oh, God.
And the new czar, Hazar.
Yeah. It's nasty, man. And kind of with the state of things, especially in regards to the Cole Memorandum being just kind of a memo, we're still just as illegal as we were prior to the Obama administration. And with that uncertainty, this activity that we're doing and display is to kind of just stay off our back, Washington. Like, respect our state. It's right. Respect our individual liberties. Sorry, we got a van driving by, but and it was also in support of Ducky's Bill, which was mentioned, and you guys just watched that video. And unfortunately, that ended up getting caucused on and never made it through session. So
typically, because of federal influence, the Office of Superintendent Instructors, federal influence and why they were no longer comfortable having the bill basically allowed cannabis to be given to qualified patients on school grounds. So the schools themselves are really worried about the federal funding influence there. So it was really concerning for specifically John, who had worked that entire year, to have pretty much all green lights up until it was caucused by the Republican Party in the Senate. The Senate Republican caucused on it, and then they said that it couldn't go any further.
Which
that's unfortunate. But did our new czar? I mean, our new czar definitely. I mean, he voted against everything he possibly could. I'm sure he was just named, so I'm sure he had nothing to do with it, of course. But the federal influence, I'm sure, with Jeff Sessions and just the tenor coming down from the Homeland Security chief. We played some of that video earlier in the show about his flip-flop from Sunday saying, hey, we're not going to mess with marijuana. We don't really care about that. But 2 days later, he says, oh, no, it's on the list. We're going to hit it at every level, at the airports and with immigrants. I'm sure we're going to, are you guys afraid that we are going to see raids again on dispensaries, on collectives? We saw so much of that under the Bush administration. I think we saw a pullback of it under Obama. Maybe you can sort of enlighten us about that. But are you worried about the medical community being aggressively come after by the DEA?
Well, I mean, specifically here in Washington State, we have a very interesting scenario where our market was commingled, and I mean, it really actually was for the worst. If you get all of the big issues that have gone on, they've all impacted the patients the most. And specifically, there were a large amount of businesses that were quote unquote medical businesses prior to the recreational law that came forward. And those businesses pretty much got shoved out of the way to the side and allowed licensed businesses. It was commingled. It was a shoddy way of putting together a merit-based application or license. So realistically, what we have here in Washington State is a version of medical where we have qualifying conditions. We have the allowance of getting a small amount of plants, unless you get onto the state's registry. Once you're on the state's registry, then you can access the medical products. Well, everybody can access the medical products, but if you're on the state sales tax, so you'd have to pay about 10% sales tax on that, which is really not a huge bonus if you think about what we're talking about is federal influence, actually even federal prosecution. And if you're on a list, a registry per se, you're not sitting in a good position. So our medical system, just to be realistic, in Washington State is non-existent. There's a lot of work to be done to put it back into place. And that's what John was up to. Though, that being said, people aren't going to jail like they were. You have small possession amount, you can get away with carrying an ounce on your person. Even the DUID scares haven't really manifested to the way they were. And just recently, a Healthy Youth survey that just went through this 2-year survey showed that youth access was on a decline.
That actually, that's one of the statistics that we were talking about earlier. The Secretary Kelly came out and said, that it's a gateway drug. Of course, we know that's been debunked.
It's a I just bought my first house, man. That's what it's a gateway to in my
right.
life, man.
Well, and that's the other thing. And the Chuck Todd today was talking about basically marijuana and cannabis coming into the mainstream and being more accepted. There are more and more shows. There's on HBO has a show. My wife's producer, that show she works on, is making a new one with Kathy Bates. There's all of these new shows that are coming into the culture. There's plenty of shows on YouTube. There's Vox, or what do you call it? Vice does Weediquette. They're doing a whole week of programming this week. And even Yahoo News, I just found today, has this whole series on, pot and the American family, or weed and the American family. And I watched these two videos back to back. One was, and most of them are just these, stories like you know, but like Ducky, you know, where these kids are basically medical refugees from the state trying to get medicine that really helps their kids and get them off of the poison. And so, you know, they have a couple of those videos, and then they show this video about this this lady whose husband was basically sent to prison because he was trying to make a little money, but Obama pardoned him. I think that was the big, you know, the idea of the story. The big theme was, oh, Obama, this was one of Obama's pardons, and he's coming back to me. And then the very next story was how this guy is now making $1.8 million with his cannabis tour industry in Colorado. You know, so here we have in this country this dichotomy, this division. You know, we see it everywhere in the economy and on so many levels. But here we have this division of the legality of this flower, where in one state you can become a millionaire and become, you know, you look at the investing. We were talking about Israel and how they're about ready. Not only do they do the most research, but they're about to start making tons of money in the market. They're about to get get permission to grow it here and export it out. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to cut you off, but you hit the nail on the head. It's the fleecing of the medical movement, which has gone on for over 20 years, and it's also it's paving the way for corporate takeover. It's really happened here in Washington State. The conglomerations really happened. I mean, cheating the system, rigging the system. The Liquor and Cannabis Board, which was renamed the was the Liquor Control Board, renamed the Liquor and Cannabis Board, and we all call it the Liquor and Corruption Board. It's really a small agency that listens to a small lobby, and that lobby's all corporately influenced, corporately paid. The big bill that conglomerated the medical system, that was run by corporate interests. That interest had nothing to do with the industry prior. They were actually restaurateurs from Seattle that got over their head, and they couldn't put out a product that was to par, and they realized that the medical market wasn't going to transition, and so they pretty much ripped the rug out from under. Now there's a lot of other issues there, and we can get down that rabbit hole really fast.
Yeah.
But, really specifically speaking, here on the front lines, and we both work in the industry. My family has a farm. Aaron works at a really nice premier shop over in Aberdeen. And we're not harshing on the industry. In fact,
no, it's really an important thing. And from the greater lens, sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead. Yeah, jump in.
Where I take that thought as a moving point, I guess, is to say that that prohibition on alcohol took about 10 years, and that legislation follows culture. That's just the way of the world. It is what it is. And so while these baby steps are sometimes difficult to manage and frustrating, they are just that. They're baby steps, and any move in this direction is keeping kids out of jail, keeping young people out of jail, giving people careers that are substantial, and that those things are really great. And we can't forget the pioneering medical market that did end up getting wiped away. Like that's, I absolutely have benefited from that, but I absolutely acknowledge that it was a very unfair situation for people who had been open for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, businesses that have been around for a long time, and they had to go away all of a sudden. So,
well, it's a double-edged sword, and we're about to start dealing with it here in California as well, because the corporate coup was successful. Richard, I know you got to go, Rich. I want you to jump in here. You're up there in Washington as well. Quick question. Go ahead. Richard Green, Project Sanity.
Yeah, hey, thanks for what you guys are doing out there, and hopefully, I don't know if I'll be able to make it out there, but maybe I'll be able to link up and we'll be able to do some recording of what's going on down there at your guys' event, one way or another.
We would love that. That'd be great, man.
Yeah, so there we are. Yeah, bam. So maybe I'll just come on with DC. That way I don't have to worry too much about it. There you go. That sounds great.
Awesome.
Yes. I'm just really excited. And so I guess one of the things that you touched on is something I also touched on before you guys joined us that I think is really important is combating the corporatization of the industry. And as you said, that it's already taken quite a hold in Washington and in California. We know, what are some ways that maybe you've heard talked about or thought about yourself about how to fight back against that, and what's something that people could do to help empower the people that are maybe fighting back against that?
So from an industry perspective, from an agriculture perspective, we need to really market the farmers, the craft, and the quality. And there's a distinction there. Basically what's hit the marketplace is basically a THC gradation. So you see people like shopping for numbers, basically, and what that's created is a bunch of quote unquote wannabe farmers that are growing for numbers, or then even shopping their lab numbers. So they're getting labs are basically lying about their numbers, and they're putting product out in the market. So I think that's a big issue right there. And how do we solve that issue? Well, here in Washington State, we started working hand in foot with the Department of Agriculture. We haven't launched it yet, but it's been over a 2-year process of putting together a pilot program to create a cannabis commission for our state. So there's a couple of commissions. Commissions are marketing orders, another rabbit hole we can jump down. But basically, we need a industry voice that's not paid for. We need an industry voice that represents the health and benefit of the industry, not of a few. Right. And marketing orders actually do that. In Washington State, we have the apple. Everybody knows the Washington apple, but they don't know the Vermont apple. And the reason they don't really know the Vermont apple, and we're particular, we're PNWs, excuse me. I'm sure people know about the Vermont apple, but the whole thing is that the Washington has an apple commission, and that apple commission basically dominated the market by putting out marketing information and putting out information about the health and benefit of apples. Now that is actually taken a 25-year course to do a campaign over to the Asian markets, but now we have Washington apples in the Asian market. Same thing can happen with cannabis. The same thing with California cannabis, Washington cannabis, and Oregon cannabis, and ultimately, past this last facade of the government. Meanwhile, we have patent number 66307 or 507, excuse me, and all of the other patents that they have. Plus, the emperor does not wear any clothes. We are at that point, and so getting back to what I'm saying is that we will be at a point where the state, interstate transfer or trafficking, if you will. I guess what I'm trying to say is trade. It will take place, and these large bread baskets, like in California and Washington, will be able to actually excel. We produce in Washington State 75% of the nation's hops, and hops is a direct cousin to cannabis.
Right.
Same family. So we directly say that, hey, if we can do that with hops, why can't we do it with cannabis?
It's going to be hilarious. The Israeli trucks are going to be going south to go to Europe across the border, and the DHA and the guys at the border are going to arrest everybody coming north of the border with their weed. And more real chat, but I think it's going to have to be we're going to have to grow up alongside and hopefully strong enough to fight these corporate monsters that are going to be challenging us. But I think it's going to be a grassroots. It's going to be like beer. Like you say, hops.
I think that's an interesting angle that I hadn't thought about, and I think just like microbreweries have found themselves a place. I think that taking a similar approach with cannabis can be a very valuable approach. So I'm really happy to hear that. I'm looking forward to talking with you guys more in the future.
Have we lost you guys? Can you hear us?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So, but I have to run.
Richard has to jet.
But you guys stick around for sure. But yeah, I'll be running into. I'll be talking to you. I'll talk with Eric, and I'm sure he'll put me in touch with you guys. And I'll talk. Well, yeah, we'll be in touch. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys. Thanks for having me, DC. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard, for joining me. This is the first episode of DC420. I'm going to try to do this every week, talk about the week's news in cannabis, the week in weed, cannabis cures, politics of pot and marijuana, and the man are my cute, illustrative, limerickal titles of segments. Right now, we're talking about the rally that's going on Saturday up there in Tacoma, in front of the State House.
In Olympia.
Oh, and I'm sorry, yeah. Olympia. I know Eric is Tacoma City Council. In Olympia. And so what time is it all happening? Where is...
3 p.m. on the steps of the Capitol. It's following the Science March, actually. I think we're...
Very good. Well done. Well done on the marketing on that one, gents.
What was that?
I said well done on the marketing on that one.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. That's going to be big because they have T-shirts.
Oh,
You're talking about the Science March.
Yeah, the
right?
Science March is big. They're going to have T-shirts, but yeah, piggybacking on them is good.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Doing a great job. So for sure that we love the Science March. We're going to be there. We're going to be supporting it.
Yeah.
We've actually shared some of our information about cannabis science with them for them to promote it as well. Our Revolution, Thurston County Our Revolution, and the Thurston County Progressives are all working together to support each other in this movement.
Very cool. Well, I wish you the best of luck. We're obviously, I think, sounds like Rich is going to come on out there. I know Eric's going to be there. So we'll probably have a couple of streams. I'll pick it up and put it on the channel. This is ourresistance.tv. And you're watching right now DC420. I'm Dave Conan. If Anderson Cooper can do it, so can I. But I'm talking about weed. I'm talking about cannabis. And we're going to do it every week. I want to thank my guest today. We have Jed. There, we're sparking up over there. I want to bring you guys in.
Happy 420.
Happy 420. Hey, I'm sorry you guys didn't get in here.
No worries.
On
man.
time for the for the thing.
Oh,
we're gonna.
We're at a 420 event here in Seattle Hemp Fest, which is a big predominant promoter of legalization in Washington State over 25 years.
Very
They've
good.
been doing a festival here.
Yep.
And we're big supporters of them.
Yeah, actually, Rigged Media Group, the marketing company that I run, we're a sponsor this year of the event. So we're going to be right across from the main stage, and we've got our banner will be right there on the Sealy stage, and we were really grateful to have the opportunity to be to kind of pay service to these guys who have been fighting for this freedom for a long time. You know, I'm a young guy. I haven't been alive for a whole lot of the drug war, and a lot of people have been fighting for a really, really long time on ultimately my behalf. You know, and so this for me is in, there's some similarities between the way I feel about people who have served in the United States military and people who served on this side of the drug war. And so to give back to an organization that does so much for those people, specifically Jimmy Romans is a name that comes right to mind, who's serving life in prison right now. Like I said, just ultimate gratitude that we could contribute and be part of this thing this year. So it's really cool. So we're hanging out with those guys in Seattle right now, which is pretty awesome.
Very cool. Well, hey, listen, just let me, oh wait, is that you? Hang on. I got to bring you guys up here. There you are. Okay, there you go. So we were talking about this earlier, Rich and I. The vets, I think the veterans are going to be the way that we can get this, really pushed through. I think it's been I think it's been influential already, but the fact that the vets are challenging, they're standing up in front of Congress and smoking, and this, the more and more stories about how this really does work for PTSD and for other ailments that the vets do, where everything else is poison. So the veterans are key, I think, to getting it through.
It's super key. It's super key. We actually got PTSD and TBI added in 2015 here, and there's a group that works against the veteran suicide crisis called 22 Too Many, active in this state. That's 20 and then numerical 22 and then many.org if you want to find information about them over here in Washington State. But they are the key. They're, basically they've been more than poisoned because pharmaceuticals are poison just in nature, but they're experimented on. All of the that doesn't make it through the FDA, the one-offs, they're given. So instead of giving 3 drugs, they're given 20 drugs, and it's just BS. And the vets I know are fed up. And if a plant can alleviate the symptoms that they're basically overprescribed for, then why aren't they being given access to it? In fact, why isn't the government growing it for them? Right? We
used to. We did. Well, up until very recently, there was still a guy getting his canister every month.
They're still alive. Elva Muskie is she's awesome. She comes up to Hempfest every year. She's still alive, and she gets a canister, and she's in San Francisco. LV Muskie, and there's more. I mean, oh my gosh, the government is just literally at this point where Pandora box is open. West Virginia just signed it into law.
Right, we're talking about that. And in the Bronx, there's a nursing home that literally the story talks about how their patients demanded that they were allowed to use it. And so now they've made these agreements to where, okay, they're, we can't administer it, we can't touch it, it's got to be locked up, but you can take it, you know, and they're like, they demanded it. You know, my mother-in-law has Alzheimer's. It's literally the only thing that gives her any peace, any joy, any relief from this dreaded disease. And, you know, she was threatened to be kicked out of the first place that she went into, the premier place here in California, in Southern California, if she tested positive. She got kicked out for other reasons, which is another story. But, you know, they are, you know, it's basically a don't ask, don't tell situation in a lot of areas. Up there in Washington, I understand there are a dozen or so nursing homes that do this.
Not only that, the Puyallup tribe actually is putting in a cannabis cancer treatment hospital with over 500 beds right in down in the Puyallup Fife area. It's going real time. I mean, not only is Israel taking it, but so are some of our sovereign nations, the indigenous peoples of Americas are really using their sovereign rights and pursuing it because their elders are asking for it as well. Mm-hmm.
Yep, they're gonna, you know, and wind. Then they're gonna get in on the wind and the solar, and it's like China is gonna beat us on that too. You know, the indigenous nations are gonna say, hey, look, we got a lot of wind in this corridor. We should probably get on board. But yeah, go ahead.
The hemp, you know, the Yakima tribe doesn't want to have anything to do with recreational marijuana, so I've been trying to encourage them to go after the hemp.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's a whole nother, you know, that's another angle. But you know that's even held up by our current drug czar. I think he even voted against industrial hemp legislation. You know, he just doesn't like any of it.
We do have interesting stuff going on with hemp, and we can go off on that forever. I think Aaron, battery's about to die.
Okay, well, we'll cover that. We'll cover that in another show. I'll have you guys back. I really want to thank you for joining me on this. This rally looks great. I'm going to pick it up and broadcast it. So send me links to your live streams, and I'll amplify the message on here, resistance.tv. I want to thank Aaron and Jed of the organizers for Fired Up on 422. And Eric Miller, of course. Thanks, my buddy Eric, for producing this segment, getting these great guys. And, of course, we'll have Eric again on another show. He's a busy guy up there doing politics. He's talking in a nursing home right now. I'm like, dude, I sent him this article about the Bronx one. He's like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, man, get it in down there. So thank you guys very much for joining me. We'll have you on another show. And peace, love, and 420.
Happy 420.
Happy 420. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right, great. That was great. I'm glad I finally got those guys in. They were having trouble getting into the hangout earlier, so they missed the 420 countdown, but that's all good. We got them in. We got great info. Richard Green, of course, joined me earlier. We had a great conversation. He'll probably be checking back in again for the next show, and I'm going to start getting maybe another video up here ready to go as we go out. But this has been great. Had a lot of fun today talking about it. I'll put the links to the event up there in Olympia in the description, as well as the stories we talked about in this episode of DC420. I'm Dave Conan, and we'll see you next week. Happy 420, everybody.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it, and didn't inhale.
I smoke 2 joints at night. I smoke 2 joints.